Today, we are going to be learning the present tense. Before we can fully dive into the technicalities of it, we must understand the terminology and the basics. So first, let's revise some definitions. The first term is one you're very likely to already be familiar with. A verb is an action or a doing word which describes what someone or something is doing. Secondly, present. Present means the action is occurring right now. If we take a look at our tenses timeline, we can see present is in the middle. It's happening right now. Another important term is infinitive. It is the basic form of a verb before anything has happened to it. An infinitive in English consists of two words, such as to play or to walk. In other languages, however, an infinitive can just be one word. For example, in French, jouer, which means to play. Conjugate. Conjugate is a word you will often hear when learning languages. It means to change a verb so that it fits whoever is doing the action or whatever is doing the action. Most of the time, a verb must be conjugated and it cannot be left in its basic form as an infinitive, else it wouldn't make sense. It must match the person that is doing the verb. To give you a better understanding of the concept of conjugation, let's consider English. We conjugate verbs in English all the time and we just don't realise it. And this is how. We always start with the basic form of the verb, the infinitive. For example, in English, let's use the infinitive to be. We alter the infinitive so that it fits with the different subject pronouns. As you can see here, in order to make to be fit you, for example, it needs to change to are. You are. You wouldn't be able to say you to be. It just doesn't make sense. Equally, you wouldn't be able to say you am. It just doesn't work grammatically. So how can we do the same in French? Well, before conjugating, we must know that there are three different types of infinitive, or verb, in French. They conjugate ever so slightly differently depending on which type it is. Okay, so let's take a look at the first type of verb, ER verbs. These are verbs whose infinitive ends in ER. For example, parler, which means to speak, or manger, which means to eat. They both end in ER. Take a look at how we would conjugate an ER verb. We start with our infinitive, in this case parler, but we would take off the ER ending, which gives us the stem of the verb, parle. Next, we need to add on whichever ending we need. These endings are essential in French and they must be learned. So, how would we say he speaks, for example? Well, we know that he in French is il, and the verb we're using, speak, is parler. So parler has had its ending removed, parle. But now we need to choose the ending which correlates with il. Il is the third row down and has just an E for its ending, so we must add E onto parle. We now have il parle, which means he speaks. Next, let's take a look at IR verbs. These are quite similar to ER verbs, as you also remove the last two letters of the infinitive to conjugate them. So finir would become fin, and then we would add our ending. Note that these endings differ from ER verb endings and therefore also must be learnt separately. Finally, RE verbs. Again, like IR and ER verbs, we need to remove the last two letters of the infinitive, RE, and then add our endings. These endings are slightly unusual, as for il, elle, on, no ending is actually needed. Let's put this into practice. Can you conjugate prendre to say she takes, finir to say we finish, and marcher to say you walk? Pause the video and then check your answers. Okay, prendre has been conjugated to elle prend. Finir has been conjugated to nous finissons, and marcher has been conjugated to tu marches. To recap, you must now understand that there are three types of infinitive in French. The first step of conjugating them all is the same, where you would remove the last two letters. Each type of infinitive has its own set of endings, which you must memorise.